suspended.
I think it's like.
Are we live? Of course we're live. We're back again, the deadly duo. Mo, what are you saying, man? You good?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. Just changing my microphone settings so you guys can hear me clearly.
Go on, man. Take your time, man. Everybody, I hope you're doing well and safe as well. Take your time. Are you done?
I'm done, bro. I'm just tired. I'm fasting and I've been doing the gardening for the first nice day in the year in this country. It's not easy, man.
You picked the best day to do that, especially when you've had no food in your belly, man. You must be dying.
Can't have a drink whilst I'm doing it. And it makes me think, these footballers that play whilst fasting, it's like you've got to fast to understand just how hard it is, because I'm just cutting the grass. I'm not against elite level footballers. And even there was a UFC fighter recently, Hamza, who fought whilst fasting, apparently. Yeah, that is mad.
See what I'm saying? That's
absolutely
crazy
to me. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, to you and everyone else who obviously is Muslim, Ramadan Mubarak and whatnot, it's kind of a great way to go on to it. Obviously, for those that might be ignorant or might not be exposed to Islam, obviously people might know of fasting. And as you said, you know, how, like, what goes into it? Like, when you wake, when can you eat, when can't you eat? And then obviously contextualize it, because then I think people would have even more admiration, because you saw Benzema the other day as well.
Yeah, and you've seen loads of footballers just going to the sideline just have a little bit of something during the game.
Imagine doctors as well, bro. Like, sorry to cut you. It's crazy.
It is. And also, do you know what? The thing is, in this country, right, we're sort of, even the footballers, actually, they're not the real heroes, because I know they're doing a lot of physical, intense work when they're out there playing at the highest level, but they are wealthy enough and protected enough to manage every other second of their day to optimal conditions, so they can rest, they can take on all the right fluids, have nutritionists to guide them through exactly what they need to do to be able to perform in those 90 minutes. But you know what? It's actually the people in third world countries, Muslims across the world, that are working under the blazing sun, doing hard labor. They're the ones that really are the heroes. And here I am complaining about cutting the grass with an electric lawnmower. So it puts it into perspective, But effectively what it is, between sunrise and sunset, which is about roughly 4 a.m. to about 8 p.m., you can't have anything past your lips. So no water, no food, nothing at all. And then after that, you want to eat. And then you must think that, people must go crazy and eat a massive feast. The truth is, after not eating for that long, you eat a little bit, you're bloated, you're uncomfortable.
Eat like a baby, innit? Yeah, literally.
Exactly, yeah. So the funny thing is, right, the Islamic calendar is slightly shorter than the Western calendar, because we go on the moon cycles. So by about 10 to 12, maybe 15 days a year, it shifts. So in like 5 years, it will be maybe February or January. So the days will be a lot shorter. And then I think to myself, I don't know, in 15, 20 years, I'm using loose figures here. I'll be a lot older, a lot more grumpy. I find it a lot more difficult, and we'll be in the height of summer again. So a few years back, we were doing it in the height of summer, and that is really tough.
This is crazy, man, and it almost puts into perspective again. Now that you said that, the first thing that goes, imagine if it was like we've got a World Cup in the winter months. Imagine that was in the summer, and imagine, as you said, the calendar fell with fasting. That's obviously going to have knock-on effects, and it's crazy. And it makes me feel, like you said, with footballers. Just imagine you're a Muslim doctor doing open heart surgery, and you haven't eaten and got the fuel and things. It's crazy, man. Like it really is. I'd have nothing but admiration, man. It really must bring you closer to God and your faith, and just like, because again, you're fasting now, but it's really through choice and following religion. A lot of people can't eat.
Yeah, behind closed doors, you can do what the hell you like. And this is the amazing thing about it, right? That there is a rule that if you're traveling, if you're a woman who's pregnant, or if you're, on your monthly cycle, or anything like that, there's various exemptions as to when you don't have to fast, or in fact, when you're not even allowed to fast. Now, when it comes to work, that's your own judgment call. If I'm a doctor doing open heart surgery and I feel like my concentration might even be minutely affected, you're not allowed to fast, or you don't have to fast, basically. So you have to make that judgment call. So these footballers, I personally think that they would be vindicated in, or sort of saying that my job doesn't really permit me to fast in order to really do the best for my employer, so I'll have to make it up after the month, and that would be fine. But the fact that they choose to do it kind of shows how deep-rooted that passion is for the month. It's it's nice, man.
Exactly, man. And for me, if it might bring people other closer. Because like you said, if you're someone that might be, I don't like the word excuse, but if you was considering not fasting and you see a footballer or a doctor, you, like you said, you know, like kind of what you said about the cutting the grass, what have you got to complain about, really and truly? And it reiterates people. So it's crazy, man. Very few things are more important than football. Religion, life, spirituality, these things are one of them for me.
Absolutely.
Obviously, while I would love to carry on this conversation, man, and I'd rather talk about this than football.
Yeah, these days.
You literally, yeah. These days, it's fun. It's funny how life humbles us, man. Let's because I know I've spoken to you indirectly, and I've been on your channel and stuff. Before we look at Southampton, even before Brighton, Crystal Palace, man. Where was you at? I know. Let me have all your thoughts on Crystal Palace, bro.
Where was I at? I was at Selhurst Park.
I was first view, man.
It was the first game back after international break where we'd been on brilliant form, sort of league leading form over the last 5-6 games or whatever. And it's one of my favorite away days in the Premier League calendar. I really, really like that stadium. It's very old school, very historic vibe. You go through turnstiles, nothing like Arsenal, absolutely nothing. You know, I remember back in the day at Highbury, I used to look at that stadium and I used to think to myself, wonder if I could sneak in. Yeah. That thought doesn't even enter my head at Emirates. You know that's watertight.
You can't. Yeah, it's airtight. Yeah, you got no chance.
Selhurst Park, I feel like the same thing. I just think, I wonder if you can get in here. Like, it doesn't seem like, it's not a modern, perfectly planned stadium. It's just got that real charm of English football history, and I love going to that stadium. Everything about that experience is different, And I think that, like, any fan coming from abroad that's a fan of English football that doesn't get to go to games and wants to understand what English football is about, don't go to the top 6 teams for their home games. Go to Crystal Palace. Go to a team like that, because the stadium announcer is getting everyone going. It's not a classy affair. It's not about the corporate seats. He's playing all the different music. The turnstiles, metal, and people are in this little tiny booth. At Arsenal, it's all electric. You don't get someone sitting there like watching you go in and all that sort of stuff, scanning your ticket, none of that stuff. The stadium is just like, it's not perfectly round. It's brilliant. I love it.
Some of the seats are quite poor. Like, I remember when I went, literally someone right next to me, there's a big fat metal pole blocking their away view, stuff like that. It's crazy.
Exactly. And so I love all of that, but that is where my fun ended on that day. As soon as that first whistle blew.
Well, reality.
Yeah, man. Awful. Absolutely awful. It was strange because, what I'll say, DG, is that over the past few weeks and months, this team has got me believing in them. And I'm not the only one. You'll recall, our defeats against Everton and Man United and stuff. And at that point, I was looking at the fixtures and I was saying, this will tell me what I need to know about Mikel Arteta. I was surprised up to the international break that we just had that he managed to change my mind, because I thought to myself, after those games, that sums you up. And then, boy, he went on a good run. And international break came at the wrong time. We were hopeless against Palace, and we didn't even have the injuries story that we do now, or that we had as a slight excuse against Brighton, if you think it is a valid excuse. And, I'm gutted. I'm really, really gutted how much that perspective has changed on what our season is all about since the last 2 games.
You're right. What would you say went wrong for you? Because obviously people could look at Tavares, people could look at just the start of how just how the players were playing. We're going against it. The only benefit, I would say, we couldn't lose to a nicer man in football in Vieira, but we just looked off the pace, second best. Just didn't fancy it. As you said, when you was articulating it perfectly about how it's, that's a perfect introduction into British football. I think it's all fun and games doing it against sides that were evidently better than games we're supposed to win, games where people are not informed, but there was a reason to have to turn up from the minute one. They've got a wealth of options. The manager's doing well. At that time, they were gearing towards an FA Cup, which I hope they do the business on the weekend. What went wrong for you? Because I personally feel the players never turned up, but I do think it was naivety from Arteta. I look at the role of Granit Xhaka. He's doing the sort of 8 thing he's been doing. I look over there at Tavares. Tavares is poor off his own back, but me and you have sat here enough times and said away from home, that's someone you got to look at. I don't feel he was protected beyond the obvious, and players just playing poorly. And yeah, man, what would you try to pinpoint this down to if you was to try and wheel it down to as to what happened, man?
Do you know, a lot of things that you've said, right? People that maybe don't actually go to games potentially and kind of see it the way you see it in the stadium might feel like they're cliches, saying that they didn't want it enough, or for example, saying that Tavares wasn't protected. Like, I want to get into the detail of what does this stuff actually mean when you say these things. Are they a bunch of just phrases that people just chuck out and cliches? Well, no, they're not. And when we talk about not wanting it enough, I look at how that manifests itself on the pitch in terms of collective pressure, sort of uncomfortable moments for the opposition. When you want it enough, you will make the person that's your opposite number not have a pleasant experience on the pitch that day. That's what I mean in terms of wanting it enough. So then when you look at the statistics behind that, it's about the duels won, the fouls given away, all of that sort of stuff. When you see someone like Wilfried Zaha is the most fouled player in the Premier League, there's a reason for that. Because people realize that if you really want it against him, you're going to need to do certain elements of the game that we might refer to as the dark arts, for example. I'm talking about you can either win the ball cleanly or you can win the ball and let the man know that you're there. And if you've played football, which moments are there to hurt a player and which ones actually this is never going to hurt a player, but what I'm doing is just letting them know I'm here to be counted today. And that's what I expect of my team. I don't want them to go out to try and injure people or anything like that, but what I'm saying is when you can get your shoulder in there and go a little bit harder, you do that. So perfect example.
Teams do to us 9 times out of 10, to be honest. And sack
and we get told to suck it up,
Yeah, we're soft.
But in the Man City game against Atletico Madrid a few days ago, right, there were a few moments where I feel like they got it right, and there were a few moments, obviously towards the end, where I felt like they saw that defeat lingering, and then they went over the line. But when the ball's running out of play and you're shielding it, for example, this is just one example in terms of wanting it and conveying the message to the opposition that I want it today and that it's not going to be easy. When that ball is running out and you, as a defender, are shepherding the ball out, you can either shepherd it and the man's irrelevant, or you can say, do you know what, have some of that in the shoulder and then do your job.
A cheap little foul, bundle him over,
Exactly.
Like what Harry Kane did to Gabriel a few years ago.
It's never given as a foul. It's one of those things where you have to be experienced and have that awareness of what you can get away with and what you can't and what's not going to injure a player, but just let them know. And I saw none of that. And when I say none, I mean literally none of that.
100% none. There's no exaggeration.
In the first half against Palace. It's like we went out there sort of believing the hype that we're on really good form and we're just going to crack on and come back where we left off. You cannot do that in this league, even week on week, but especially after an international break. International break, we all would have said at the time, it's come at the wrong time for us. And the reason is because you lose that momentum. So that momentum isn't God-given. You can't just assume that you're going to get it back.
You can't just turn it on and off, Yeah.
And then the second point, that I want to just hit home, that it's not a cliche when you talk about Tavares not being protected. Mikel Arteta went and played the same system. It wasn't sort of a case of, okay, look, we've got Tavares. We know he struggled away from home. Was it Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup?
There's a whole catalogue of them, bro. There's Nottingham Forest, there's Forest, Selhurst Park in hindsight, Old Trafford, Anfield. It's a regular theme, unfortunately, with Tavares away from home. Maybe it's adapting to the culture and whatnot. Maybe it's naiveties. I don't know.
But then you have to think to yourself, well, how can a manager then protect that player? And, again, to get past the fact that this isn't just a cliche, it's not just words that we're saying, there's thought to it and understanding behind it. We at Arsenal, we play with an inverted system at full strength. We have Tierney, who's one that does go forward. Tomiyasu goes forward to an extent, but nowhere as much as Tierney. He's more of an inverted centre-back. And going back to the Arsene Wenger days where we were accused of naivety is because both fullbacks pushed up the pitch and left us weak. Certain teams can do that have got world-class central defensive players like a Fernandinho, like a Fabinho, who know exactly their role, know when to go, when
smart
not to
as
go.
well, yeah,
and you can trust them. Xhaka and Thomas Partey aren't that. Partey is world-class in other ways, but not in terms of he's not the best defensive midfielder and necessarily got that intelligence.
He's not the best if it was a firefighter. He's not the best at sensing fires and putting them out early before it's become a thing. Facts, 100%.
Exactly. Right. He's great on the ball. I feel like beating the press and everything, and he's got good physicality. But in terms of positionally, I wouldn't say he's a world leader. Like I think like a Fabinho may well be, even though he didn't play that well against City recently. But anyway, so when we're talking about that, now that you're playing Tavares, now that it's had to change and you've got Cedric on the other side, don't play that same system. Play a more containing system on the left-hand side. Make him the inverted guy. Make his role, his job, what you're asking of him really simple. Don't worry about getting forward. Don't worry
Minimize
about
it and give
assists.
him
Don't worry about
confidence.
overlaps. Make sure you have a good game. This should be what we do in light of the bad games he's had at the start. At first, let him be expansive. And when you realize that actually, this could be a bit of a fragile area, that's how I expect we protect our player. And that's how I expect even Granit Xhaka, left-sided defensive midfielder, just support, double up when you need to, that sort of thing. Even
That's
Gabriel.
what jarred me, bro. Sorry to cut you, because it's like earlier in the season when you had Tini, where you said Tini's clearly more switched on, he's more seasoned. It's like Xhaka's had given him the safety net, and now we've switched it up. Now again, obviously the system's changed, but I just couldn't understand it personally. We just left them out there to get destroyed, really, for me.
Yeah, and you have to separate sort of the decisions you take before the game to the decisions you take during the game. So I'm critical of Arteta and the decisions he took before the game in the setup. But then I kind of think to myself, to what extent does that translate to the players? Gabriel, who tried to intercept that ball, for the first goal. I get that over the course of a season, you're going to get some wrong. And I like defenders that try and play on the front foot. But yeah, there has to be like an analysis of the situation. If he got that ball, he's not going to control it. He's only ever going to get a toe on it. And then it's a bit of a lottery in terms of where the ball goes. You have to then realize that you're playing with Tavares. And if you miss it, then it's all on him.
And you're in problems,
Yeah. So that sort of decision, I feel like if the manager is communicating to the team that we're going to support Tavares, be a bit more containing on the left-hand side, that would mean that the left-sided defensive midfielder, the left-sided centre-back, you've got more responsibility today. You need to make sure that we're playing in a more of a controlled manner rather than doing things like that Gabriel did.
Be more balanced in how you're playing,
Yeah, then potentially he doesn't do that. But because we've seemed to have just gone out there saying, as usual, lads, I feel like this is where those errors creep up. So that's where I'm talking about in terms of wanting it more. That's what I'm talking about in terms of protecting Nuno Tavares, and we didn't do that. And then on top of that, we had no bailout guy. We had no one player that said, in spite of all of these mistakes, I'm going to sort you out today. And that's what you get. I was very, very hurt by that performance.
Would you pull it down to would you say the manager's inflexible? Because on one hand, we know we've got a very young, very volatile squad, very elementary squad. So the ability to play multiple systems and functions collectively and individually is probably not in our remit. We've probably not got it in us. But like you said, we kind of just was on this as you were sort of thing. And that's kind of my problem at Arsenal. I see what we did that didn't work against Palace. I remember when Lacazette came into the side with Aubameyang. I'm not going to say Arteta isn't doing these things on purpose, but it's almost like we stumble across a system. It works until it doesn't, and we're not really going to we're going to change it unless we're going to get into in a bit with the Brighton game. So is it Arteta's naivety? And to be fair to Mikel Arteta, I think the Brighton game's more on him than the Palace game. But it's like, how much do you blame Arteta? Because the players, forget the manager and the fans and all these things for a sec. You've got top four. It's like you said, international break's done. We need to get back on it. It's a big week. Every 3 points means that much more because next week, we got Chelsea United. How much do you put on the players and things like that?
Well, yeah, I feel like Palace was very much players. Once you're out on the pitch, a manager can do what he likes, but it's also you to use your awareness, your intelligence, and be up for the game. And I did not see that. Against Brighton, though, boy, that was all on Arteta. I think, often fans, we talk in hindsight. It's very easy for us to say, like, why did you do that? This person was injured, blah, blah, blah. But on this occasion, I feel like every person that I spoke to was saying that, what? Xhaka left back? Even to the extent that before the game, people were saying, oh, I wonder if it's going to be Saka or Xhaka left back. Yeah, because I think that was such a valid question because people didn't think that he would be pulling out one of our two first-choice midfielders when the other one wasn't there. It was just such a strange decision. Now, with Arteta being inflexible, and I don't know if I'd say that because he has changed the system at different points this season, but ultimately he didn't flex it in the right way. I actually don't care if you are a bit inflexible. There has to be some level of flexibility, and he showed that he's not completely inflexible because he did play Xhaka, so he flexed that. But it's getting it right. You know what I mean? It's getting the flexibility right. When Thomas Partey's injured, please just shore out that midfield with what you've got.
Don't make more problems. Don't make more holes in the side for me.
Exactly.
Anyway.
And then also on top of that, we don't have our first choice right back who's a bit more comfortable in his position, who you can then say to him, okay, look, you do the attacking job today. Again, talking about that protection, we'll let Xhaka, who's filling in at left back, be a bit more containing. So we didn't do that either because we don't have Tomiyasu there. So you've kind of got a weak spot in the right back situation, weak spot in the left back, weak spot in the middle. First goal, what happens? Where does it come from? Xhaka getting too high up the pitch.
Getting caught, Gabriel, yeah. And we're not following runners. Yeah, facts.
Gabriel, again, not being switched on to the fact that I don't have a well-versed left back there. He should have been a bit more quicker to get out to the cross. I can't remember the guy's name. Mwego?
Mwepo or something like that. Yeah, he had a very good game against us. Tore us
apart. Gabriel, he didn't get close enough. The central defensive midfielders, as soon as that ball goes from, I think it was Lewis Dunk, they should be spinning. And then what happened? They're not doing that. Trossard is free at the edge of the box. Too much time on the cross, too much time on the finish. Where is this alertness that actually we've got
street smartness?
Yeah, exactly. And that wasn't there. So, you know, that's on the manager and the players for me.
I mean, obviously, like you said, I do think it's a bit of bewildering wrong because, like you said, I don't think it's fair to say Arteta is inflexible because you don't play Xhaka left back and he's done some bewildering things. But I don't know how to actually ask this question to you. What do you make of Arteta? Because it feels for me, he's the sort of guy from when we turned our form around in the winter months. If it wasn't broke, he wasn't fixing it. If you're a left back, he was playing left back sort of thing. Now it feels with 7 games left where our young players are finally starting to show their age in April. It's a bit reminiscent of that semi-final in the Europa League against Villarreal, whoever it was, where unnecessarily we're changing things. We're trying to do a bit too much. I mean, he would have been a genius. We might have been sitting here all praising the midfield and things like Xhaka left back against Brighton, but it didn't work. What do you make of when he does things like that? And could that be down to the fact of if you don't necessarily deliver top 6, top 4, etc., you may not necessarily lose your job?
You know, I do a podcast every Monday on the Arsenal Lounge, and the host of that is going on and on at me. His latest theory is that there's no pressure. And he was like, we actually watched the Chelsea Atletico game together, and we looked at those Chelsea players, we looked at Tuchel, the body language and everything, and he kept on saying to me, that is pressure. That's evidence of pressure. And, you know, for example, Lukaku, you know, is not getting in the team. He's having to make some quite tough calls, even though that's quite a big call, because clearly he's under pressure. And even though like someone might point the finger and say, well, why don't you play Lukaku? He's under pressure and having to make these big calls.
Fact.
With Arteta, you know, we sort of like, you could say that he's making a big call by playing Xhaka left back, but I think a bigger call would have been to change the system and to stick with Tavares.
Potentially through the back, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like he can almost do some of these things that you're talking about. And perhaps that is symptomatic of not having pressure, not really having your job on the line if it goes wrong. With Arteta as a whole, I am really torn on him because I have seen some promise in terms of, you know, him delivering a more controlled style of play, and we are a better team, we're better defensively. But look, a friend of mine, he sent me a stat recently, right?
Go on.
The number of goals that we've scored in the Premier League over the last 4 seasons, including this one, obviously season's not complete. Under Wenger, 76 goals in 17-18. Under Emery, 73 in 18-19. Under Arteta in 2021, massive drop, 55. But we can say he had to shore up the defence. Yeah. This season, 45 with 8 games to go, 7 or 8 games to go. So we've seen that downwards trajectory. And I'd say that's completely in keeping with Lacazette in a way. You know, it's quite, I'm not saying it's on him solely, but I'm saying it's reflective of his sort of career, you know, and how poorly he sort of declined. And then I look at Arteta and I think to myself, you as part of the management team, he hasn't been there for that long, but as part of the management team who are dealing with transfers, how many attacking signings have you made that we are positive about?
Actually, Odegaard. You know, I bought Odegaard. Yeah, it took a while, but Odegaard. I mean, would you say Willian? No, I'm playing him. That's the only one he's made. He hasn't made too many. Now that you say that, who's he brought in? Really? You could technically say Tavares, but he was brought in to be a backup left back. First job of the defense is to defend.
So how many attacking subs? How many attacking transfers have they made? And of those, how many have been successful? You've made 2 and you're at 50%.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I'm scratching my head. Really.
So unless we can't think of the. Sometimes it's hard in the moment to come up with the names, but I can't think of any other than Willian and
there isn't. There literally isn't.
Odegaard. Yeah,
I don't think there isn't. You're 100% right. I think there's a lot of we tried, but I don't think there is any. And you're right, man. I'd say that's a very interesting point. I'll give Arteta the luxury. You know, there's been some external factors for that, but I really am disappointed generally with Mikel Arteta's like trying to put balls in the back of the net. Like you said, I feel conflicted. I see what you're doing with the fullbacks when fit. I see what Odegaard's doing, but then, you know, our statistics for goals scored, for big chances missed, for chance creation, we're not really there. And some teams arguably have less. Like if we look at Brighton generally or Southampton, they don't score a lot, but when you watch them, they're actually moving the ball from back to front very, very quickly. It does feel like Arteta needs a lot of variables for it to work. And for me, we both watch Arsenal week in, week out. For me, we don't play through central areas enough. We go from out to in at best. That's why you see Gabriel and Ben White on the ball a lot, because there's no number 8. He clearly wanted a striker because last summer was linked with Tammy and Litoro and things like that. And you know what happened in January. So I feel when you're not trying to control, when I don't know what you're doing in midfield, when you don't look like a team that wants to score goals, I can't really be confused as to why we're having mixed results. We have improved defensively, and I got a lot of heat for saying we're not a good defensive side. We're an improved defensive side. We've improved, but a good defensive side doesn't concede the sort of goals that we concede, like you just said, with Crystal Palace and Brighton. So I'm not really sure. And I think for me personally, I think it all comes back to midfield. I really do. And that's one area, considering the director of football and the manager, I can't see anything from it, to the point where, you know, jumping a bit ahead before we go back to Brighton to Southampton.
I wanted to ask you a question, because you just touched on the midfield, and you know, Granit Xhaka always is going to be part of that conversation when we talk about midfield. Yeah. What did you think of the interview that he did recently, just overall?
Oh, you know what? I'll be real. I'm tired of hearing about it, because it's the same thing. I would say for Granit Xhaka, obviously there's what I call Xhaka sexuals, people that he could do anything and they won't criticize. There's people that he, just criticize him to the point where, like he said, when I'm not playing, I'm being criticized. I think I actually like his mentality. I wish a couple have had it like that. I think he's made peace with the fact of many Arsenal fans will judge and critique me fairly. Some people are going to love me unconditionally. Some people are going to hate me. I like anytime any footballer is allowed to kind of come across as human. I think he made a good point about, we're just here for 90 minutes. You don't know me. I don't really know you. I think that was a big point. But I just feel I wouldn't say unnecessary, but we've been hearing this already, really, really, really and truly. I don't think it's anything new under the sun. I do hope that some people saw it and just said, okay, I've seen a different side to him, a more sympathetic side to him, a more misunderstood side to him. But that's where it stops for me. Like, I remember being at the Emirates for the Crystal Palace game when all of that happened, and it felt like a pantomime. I'll be honest. It felt like he was a pantomime villain. The only thing I disagreed with wholeheartedly was, throwing the shirt. I didn't agree with swearing at fans, but logically, if you swear at someone in the street, they're going to swear back at you. So I didn't really find anything wrong with that. What did you make of it? Now that you said it, that's a good thing. I forgot to ask you, to be fair.
Yeah, I just think it's ill-advised. I think it increases the pressure. I feel like, if I always look at this, right? The Players' Tribune, they did this. Do they have Granit Xhaka's best interest at heart, or do they have their own engagement metrics and their own ambitions at heart? If I was Granit Xhaka's agent, brother, whatever, confidant, and he said, I'm thinking about doing this, I'd be saying, look, Granit, you're not flavour of the month. You probably never will be. You're probably going after a lost cause here with these fans in trying you need to just kind of shut up shop. I don't care what you think. Don't communicate that, but that's the mentality you need.
Just matters internally what they think, man, because clearly he's valued at all levels within the club. He just has to make peace with that. You're right, still.
Yeah. And then on top of that, look at the timing of when you're doing it. You're not doing it at the start of the new season where people are almost kind of saying that, there's that willingness to press the reset button. And
there's that optimism.
You're doing it right in the business end. If you do that interview and follow it up with a red card or follow it up with an error that leads to a goal, then that interview...
the writing on the wall.
Exactly. Whilst if you play well, no one is going to attribute it to that interview. But if you play badly and do something stupid, people are going to attribute to that interview, use those quotes against you and say, all sorts. So I think it's very ill-advised. I've got no idea what he's seeking to gain. Anytime you do something in the public eye, you should be asking yourself, why am I doing this? What am I hoping to achieve by doing this? And if you can't really answer those questions or or come up with sensible answers to those questions. I don't know what you're doing. He said, I'm not going to leave Arsenal until we'll win something special. What is special?
Yeah, it's all subject to speculation because you've been here for an FA Cup. You're contracted until 2023. You're 20 or 2024 now. Same length of time as Saliba, Martinelli, and Saka, who were talking about new deals. Pepe the same, So you're right. What are you winning? And for me, like you said, it just increases the pressure. You just made yourself a target. Like, I'm not going to say no one's talking about Granit Xhaka, but nobody's kind of onto you because you didn't say anything. And we both know in the summer, his future in particular is going to be heavily speculated, whether he's staying or going. Yeah. So he didn't help himself.
Remember with Gazidis, he said about competing with the likes of Bayern Munich. That haunted him forever. And actually, I feel bad for him because that wasn't a promise. It was a plan. Yeah. But the footballing world is ruthless. They don't care if it's a promise or a plan. They're going to hold it to you. Yeah. Came out your mouth. We're gonna hold you to it. When Granit Xhaka leaves now, he's setting himself up to leave this club having failed. If he's saying, I want to win something special, we've won FA Cups already, in recent years. League Cup isn't special. You're talking about 2 trophies. Premier League, Champions League. Well, let's say even Europa League, because we haven't won it before. 3 trophies. If you don't win that and you leave, you didn't achieve what you set out to achieve. For me, anecdotally, that has summarized your time at the club as a failure, by your own words. Why do that? What benefit is there to give people this ammunition against you? And what I saw there was that actually he is affected by the interaction with the fans and stuff.
He's an emotional guy. There's nothing wrong with it, but he's I think he's different, but he's similar to Aubameyang in that he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's emotional, the way he's grown up and things. I can see why he does certain things, and I somewhat like that. But you're right, and you said something interesting, and I didn't think of it first time with your points around you've set yourself up to fail. I was more, when I read it out or listened, I was more focused on the whole incident that marks Granit Xhaka's time here. But now that you said that, you have set yourself up to fail because we know you're one of the captains. You're Arteta's guy, and he once again reiterated what we knew in that he was kind of gone. He was leaving. His suitcases were packed, and then Arteta you kind of, now that you said that, you've kind of put heat onto Arteta, because I indirectly said it. I keep saying number 8. Edu and Arteta were midfielders. They bet on Xhaka to the point where I am a bit less critical on Xhaka because he's, for me, got into that Lacazette territory to a degree, Tavares, where they're not picking or playing themselves. How much can I be angry at mistakes? So you've kind of brought heat onto Arteta now that you said that, and you've got me thinking more. You're right. Xhaka's not helped himself at all, especially with the running. Yeah,
the timing of it is the worst.
Right,
and we've seen footballers should learn from what Man United players have done this year. Stop writing essays. It's a mockery. It's an absolute mockery. Arsenal have done it to an extent. But actually, do you know what? I like Ben White's energy. In the past, he came out in an interview and said, I don't watch football or whatever. I haven't heard from him since. I haven't seen anything on social media trying to suck up to fans or anything like that. You're doing your job. You've got your personal life.
Facts. You just got to accept what happens, really. What was it? Has Mo froze for you guys? Or was it just me? Let me see. Let me type something. Maybe it's me frozen.
It's me.
You're back. You're back. What did you say anyways? What was you saying?
Yeah, I like Ben White's energy. He came out and said earlier on in the season that, I don't watch much football, and got a bit of stick for that. Since then, haven't heard from him. And you know what? His social media is only about his own, a picture of his dog or whatever it might be, not trying to butter up to fans. Stop that.
Overcompensating, yeah.
Granit Xhaka said, you don't know me, I don't know you. The truth is, I don't care. I'm a 37-year-old, in my own situation, I'm a 37-year-old man with a baby and a wife and a job. I don't want to get to know
and
you.
Bills to pay, trust me.
Just do the job. Which, to be fair, he's been doing okay in recent weeks.
Facts. Oh, man.
Stop begging it. It's like when you see a grown man holding up a sign, can I have your shirt? And people kind of say, come on, you need to stop this.
Grow up a bit, yeah.
Same way with the Premier League footballers. Stop begging it. Stop holding up a sign saying, I want to be your friend. It doesn't matter. Just play. Just play well.
Hey, you're right, because I just think you've got to accept love or hate me. I think there's a couple of footballers that kind of do that. Xhaka, you, on one hand, I do think you're a resolute character. You do, a lot of things is thrown your way. I do think a lot of footballers would have broken, but you keep going. But then I think you are quite emotional. You do come across as somewhat, you know, the ugly family member or ugly duckling that wants a bit of love, that wants to be told they're special, someone that wants to stop being a bridesmaid and be a wife. So it's like you said, just make peace with it, really and truly. And for me, like you said, we're never, a lot of Arsenal fans, like I think I can speak for both of us in the sense of, and many here, is that when Xhaka's not our biggest cup of tea, you know, he's probably not what we want, but he's not a terrible player. And if you do well, we'll say you played well. If you done bad, you say you done bad. The problem is battle camps have been drawn. How much of that do you attribute to the club now? Because I start to look beyond Xhaka now. Xhaka can be a big character in the change room. He can do all of these things. But for me, as an ignorant fan, I see midfield as a serious error. I think we've got a lack of depth. I feel Xhaka's one of the only guys who will pass the ball forward with all his issues. And then I start to look at Mikel Arteta. Do you think it's the summer Granit Xhaka has to either be moved on, somewhat demoted, and someone else has to come specifically into that place? Because you've signed Odegaard. For Partey finally looks at home. Unfortunately, he got injured. That's the missing piece of the puzzle. And I don't think that's what I think that's a big reason as to why we can't break down low blocks. We don't really dominate games. I don't know what our midfield is. It's not mad defensive. It's not mad expansive. I definitely don't understand what we're doing at Brighton, even though in the future, I think Lokonga, Smith Rowe, and Odegaard, they can all do that. But they're all learning. So to throw them in there, it's not making sense to me. Really, really not.
I'm going to say something now, which might be controversial for a few people, right? Back in the day, we had, I'm not even going to go to Vieira. Vieira was an alien, absolute alien. But let's say someone like Gilberto, right? He was not, when people talk about the greatest ever midfielders in the Premier League, he's not in that conversation for a lot of people. And then he's called him the invisible wall, invisible for a reason, because he was like very effective, but not sort of like, wasn't doing really expansive,
you
amazing
only saw
things.
him when you needed to see him, man.
Yeah, but he was special. He was a specialist in terms of what he did. Cazorla, special player. Hardly any, I can't remember seeing hardly anyone who was better at beating a press than Cazorla. He was just magic with the ball at his feet.
Nostalgia, man. You're making me miss it. You're making me want a midfielder even more, bro.
Fabregas, unbelievably special player in terms of, you know, being covered with the ball and the passing range and, you know.
It's a Barcelona midfielder in an Arsenal shirt.
Ozil, one of the playmakers of his generation. And people forget, we saw an incredible version of Ozil in the first couple of years, right? Yeah, towards the end, obviously, things soured. But I remember he just arrived, assist, just non-stop. Anyway, these were special players. Now, we've got Ødegaard, who is a really, really, really good player. I like Ødegaard a lot. I love his pressing. But is he sort of like world class? Is he like truly, truly memorable in any facet of the game?
Not at this moment in time. He might be one day, but not at this moment.
Might be one day, yeah. But as it stands, I kind of feel like I love Ødegaard. I thought he's brilliant value. I think he's a brilliant professional. I think he's a really, really good presser. But he's not that amazing eye of the needle sort of player. He's, you know,
consistently as well, people, because that's one thing. When you listed all of those players, they were doing it consistently. It wasn't just one time in the 60th minute where we're watching it over and over again. It was consistently every possible occasion they could. The footballing IQ was of a different level as well.
Yeah, and Ødegaard can definitely get there, but I'm talking about just as of now. As of now, with Thomas Partey, we have seen those glimpses that actually he can be incredible, unbelievably good at beating the press and physical, and sometimes really, really intelligent, other times not. But we've seen those moments where you're like, wow, yeah, we can see this guy can be the real deal. Granit Xhaka, I think he is what he is. He's a limited player. He hasn't got the agility, the mobility, all that sort of stuff. Got a lovely left foot, but needs time on that left foot, needs that chance to look up. Doesn't have a map of the pitch. Like
needs more touches than less, and you're always in a bad scenario as a midfielder with that.
Yeah, so my point is we don't have that real special magic in the middle of the pitch. And for that reason, I kind of feel like, it's a bit sort of, as you say, the variables, what you said earlier, the variables have to work for Arsenal, because we can't have, for example, Cazorla just producing a moment of magic and all of a sudden the space is there. We have to create that space. We have to go through our motions and our methods to do that. And that's what happens when you don't have special players. And the truth is we don't have special players. We don't have world-class players in our team. I think that, you know, you can't walk into a room full of football fans and say this player at Arsenal Football Club is world-class without opposition. You know, who's the closest world-class player we have right now?
I don't think there is any. Probably, I don't know. You know, I don't think there is. There's some top players. There's some good players with potential. There's some players that have admiration, but Nah, man, it'd probably be Saka or Odegaard up there, and they're not there yet, are they?
Yeah,
Really?
exactly. I think if you go into a room and say Saka's world class, or
Or like
someone
Tino
said
said, maybe
Partey
Partey,
in the
but
chat, is Partey playing at a consistently world class level
not
week
in
in
an
week
Arsenal
out?
shirt, man. He's done it
I
for
don't
4 or
think so.
5 games, if I'm honest, or
Yeah,
at that level consistently.
yeah. Partey has been really, really good for a long part of this season, but you don't give people that world class tag for just a little part of a season. In that case, the Leicester back four that won the league are world class.
Yeah.
Because they were flipping it incredible all
Facts.
season.
Facts.
So it's not that easy to get that world class label. And if you walk into a room and say Saka's world class, I think you'll get opposition to that.
You should get opposition, because he's just putting a target on his back, and it's just, as much as we love him, it's just not the truth. It's just a lie. It really just not the truth. You're right.
Yeah, he's overperforming for his age and everything, and he's an absolutely brilliant player. I'd be buzzing if we didn't have him and we signed him, but I wouldn't say world class.
This is it, and that's my sort of issue. My problem is there's two for a team like Arsenal, for a team that has to go for top 4, top 6, or whatever. You need to have freedom within a framework. I've seen, not on many occasions, but Pep Guardiola will go to a back three from time to time, or whatever he does, he'll chop and change, but the framework will remain the same. Now we know the age, the IQ, the street smartness. A lot of these things aren't there. Sometimes I do think that Arteta thinks that these players might have graduated a couple grades sooner because they're not ready. Like, I go back to the Brighton game, and what did you feel on the Brighton game? Because in the future, I like that midfield. I like Lokonga as a lone 6, the 2-8s. But in reality, Smith Rowe has played a couple of roles this season. He's still learning. Odegaard is still learning. Lokonga psychologically is still learning as much as that. So when they don't understand what they're doing in their own roles, and you've now given them another one, and then it's like being in a team. If you don't know your role, I don't know my role, and they have to intercept. What are we doing here? We're kind of, and again, against a team like Graham Potter to the Wolves. So do you think he's kind of thinks they're not, I don't want to say smarter than they are, but kind of overestimating the intelligence and the IQ and probably just the street smartness of his side?
Perhaps is that, or perhaps against Brighton, it was just as simple as you're playing players not in their positions. Not just Granit Xhaka, but even Emile Smith Rowe. He's not a left winger. Emile Smith Rowe is not a left winger, and if you're gonna put him left wing, put Aubameyang in the middle. Where you see the great example is Benzema. The performances that he's put in recently, right? As you look at the wide players at Real Madrid, specifically Vinicius, right? Who is naturally good out there anyway. As soon as he gets the ball, he's looking because he knows Benzema's going to be there.
Every mistake, he's looking for Benzema. Facts as well, yeah.
With Arsenal, I feel like when our wide players, whether it's Smith Rowe, Martinelli, Pepe, whoever it might be, there's not that expectation that Lacazette's going to be there. It makes your job incredibly harder. Facts. You beat your man, you make that yard of space, you're looking up, or even if at this point you still bother looking up, but Lacazette's not going to be there. So it makes it a lot harder. And someone like Smith Rowe, who's not got raw out-and-out pace, he's got a deceptive ability to eat up ground.
When he's in the stride,
He's just like, you kind of think to yourself, oh, he's in within touching distance, and then a counter-attack happens, he's taken up 50 yards, and you're surprised. Because it's about his reading of the game. He's on the front foot quicker than you, not necessarily going to beat you in a race. And when you're up against a right back, and he's playing left wing, and you're not naturally a left winger, and you have to literally beat them with the ball, it's one of the hardest things to do in world football, to beat people with the ball and retain the ball and leave them for dead. It's not easy. You don't see it very often. Only real special players can do that. Iron Robin made a living out of it, didn't he?
Yeah. You knew what he was going to do, and you still just couldn't stop it. Yeah, facts.
Exactly. Yeah, and when you face up a player, they know what you're going to do. Most players, especially in a physical league like the Premier League, it's the old mantra: man or ball. They do not let both of them get past them, and they know what they can do to not give away a free kick and stop you getting past them. And also, you can't chuck him out on the left and expect him to do that without a proper killer in the middle that you can get the ball to quickly. So.
Facts.
I think with Arteta, for me, against Brighton, it was people out in position. We've spoken about the obvious one on Xhaka, but Emile Smith Rowe is obviously that as well. So, I kind of feel like that was all on him. And even then, the required effort from the first whistle wasn't there. Yeah. Look at the first 10 minutes. Look at the last 10 minutes.
Yep.
The increase in intensity is natural to an extent, but it shouldn't be that different.
Why'd you have to go down? I said it in my watch along. I was like, I said it pre-game. I was like, looking at Brighton, these games here with these, like, we can form or not, you can't. 1, it's Graham Potter. 2, do not go down and think, to have to want to react. We need to react. I never saw a team that One, thought about top 4. 2, we disappointed ourselves against Palace. 3, the games are running out. We ain't got 30 more games to play. It's kind of now or never. So, as I said at the start, Palace is more on the players. Brighton is more on Arteta, but they're too interlacting in that the players were second best all over. Like even Odegaard, I like you, big fan of Odegaard. I'm an Odegaard apologist. I'll make every excuse for Odegaard, but you look like two different players. And before I look at you, Lacazette, you know, we knew that we was playing a dangerous game with everybody staying in form, everybody staying fit. Crucially for Lacazette to not get any questions, everybody else has to score. Suddenly, what's going on? And like you said, for me, when I look at Lacazette, he's barely in the box. He looks like his body's breaking down. He's less able to get there. And when he is there, to call it mediocre is probably a praise to the point where just because Eddie Nketiah is hitting the post, bro, I'm now starting. I don't really rate Eddie, but I'm starting to feel, yeah, you know what, Southampton, you've got to start. I'd prefer Martinelli through the middle, but if it's just a man for man, probably I'm going with Eddie. I know Eddie can't really do the Lacazette dropping deep thing, but yeah. And what are your feelings going into Southampton anyways as well, now that we're on that?
Lacazette won't play against Southampton. He hasn't been in training this week. Something's obviously up, whether it's injury, illness, disagreement. I have got no idea. So don't think that I'm trying to even claim to be ITK or anything.
No. Come on, man.
I don't do any of that nonsense.
It's an educated guess.
Yeah, he hasn't been in the training pictures. So he's not going to play against Southampton, in my view. I'd be very, very surprised at this late stage. I do need to check today, if they're training today, to see whether he's there. But he hasn't
I saw a couple comments. He played quite quiet on, like, you might be right. He played quite quiet. He was in typical form Arteta where he's not saying yes, he's not saying no. But to us, that's probably an answer, isn't it? Really and truly.
And if he is injured or for whatever reason, if he can't play, actually, I think it's come at the perfect time, because the question is a really valid one. And you obviously just spoke about that now as to whether he plays or Nketiah plays. You know, interestingly, it has been 18 games since Lacazette's last scored an open play in the Premier League. 18 games. How long is a season? 38. Divide that by 2 is 19. This Southampton game would have been 19 games, half a season of playing without scoring an open goal. You're telling me not once have you just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Not once in half a season.
When he has scored their penalties as well, more time as well. So you got to further discount it.
He scored penalties and not a single one from out of play. I mean, come on. That is appalling. That is an absolute joke.
It's ridiculous. To call it a joke is an understatement. Facts.
Yeah, he's been awful. And, you know, there was a point where people were kind of saying, all right, but his link-up play. He had, in the first half an hour against Brighton, I think like 6 touches or 9 touches.
He had less touches than Gabriel at home. We're meant to be on the front foot. It's not just him. I'm not going to do the blame thing, but come on.
I'm sorry. That is not, his form has been awful. He is a relegation striker. He really is. Unfortunately, his form, his stats are that of a relegation striker.
I don't even think he's that, because he doesn't score the goals that's going to keep your team up, really. So I don't even think it's that. And that's where I go back to Arteta. Is obviously a lot of what you have to use is what it is, sort of thing. But that's your squad now. And again, it goes back to the build-up play. When you haven't got a number 8, when you've got Lacazette who drops far too deep and ain't got the legs to go up there, there's only so many times Smith Rowe, Martinelli, Saka can make those forward runs. When you overcompensate with your centre-backs, when you haven't got your full-backs, when you've chopped and changed the midfield like against Brighton, it's going to sound stupid, but when I'm watching these games, it's a silly, football's a basic game. You need to score more than your opponent. How are we really trying to score? Like, how are we trying to score? It's not making sense.
Lacazette has had 44 shots in the Premier League this season. That's just as much as Thomas Partey. And let me tell you this. João Cancelo has had more. Trent Alexander's had 2 less. Rudiger's had 5 less. These are flipping defenders, man.
These are guys having have-a-go heroes and trying to shoot.
It's absolutely mad. Brian Mbeumo at Brentford has had 60.
This is it.
Mason Mount has had 10 more, 54. Harvey Barnes, 53. Daniel James at Leeds has had 53. Phil Foden has had 50. Tielemans, 50. McAllister at Brighton, 46. Lacazette's on 44.
This is it. And that's what he's always been, because I remember people used to say Lacazette is more clinical than Aubameyang because he'll take less shots and score more goals. I used to sit there and say, no, the better striker is the one scoring goals. And this is where I feel there's no backup plan. We was trying to play Aubameyang into form / playing him. We know if Aubameyang ever stops scoring, he's harming the team. We know when you go with Lacazette and Aubameyang, Lacazette's game isn't necessarily based on goals. Like you said, as long as he's giving you all the other stuff, you don't really care per se. but he's not doing that. And then now
Exactly.
there's no fullback play. So it's
Exactly.
like you don't bet on this in January. You
Yeah.
look over there at Spurs, it's not the same, but you look at the players they've brought in January, it's giving them a boost. That January could be a reason as to why we don't get fourth beyond the obvious.
Exactly. You look back and you five games ago, for example, and you say to yourself, even if Lacazette obviously didn't score in the game, why was he picked for this game? And you can put a case forward. Against Brighton, I saw no case. So as far as I'm concerned, he does need to be dropped. And, the fact that he hasn't been in training, I think is a good thing. Now, in January, that transfer window, a lot of this does come down to Edu and Mikel Arteta, because it was very obvious there were going to be injuries. We always know that there's going to be injuries, and they had a really, really good chance of cementing top four. At that time, I think we were in fourth at the end of December, the final game in December in the league. We were in fourth place. We had a maybe 3 points gap on Tottenham, and so it was very realistic. There should have been an ambitious gamble at that point to add to the team. And for the people that say to me, "Oh, you can't add in January," and they try and give me that,
I'm tired of fighting them, man. I'll leave that one to you.
But fine, I won't even. I could give you a list of the players that were signed in the Premier League in January. We can
Every
talk about
striker that left in January. We brought him in January.
Yeah, but we could even talk about Kulusevski, or even what was it, the Burnley Weghorst, for example.
Yeah,
it's possible to do certain things, whatever. But I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to say, fine, if you can't add, don't take away. That game against Brighton, would I have rather had Maitland-Niles left back, or would rather have had Xhaka left back? And so it comes on to them. If we don't get top four, I'm not saying that Arteta should be sacked because of it, but I'm saying that we could have got top four, and because of your lack of ambition in that transfer window, where we had top four in sight, you didn't do anything. Well, this is what you get.
And like you said, I feel there was a lot of battlefields drawn. I think certain people just criticized Arteta's business in January. Certain people somehow tried to put a positive spin on it when it's neither here nor there. You made a great point. If you can't strengthen, don't let people go. Now, I'm not against Ainsley leaving. He wanted to leave, etc. I do think it's a bit of an inexperienced thing. Not that you want to sit on the bench, but Cedric had offers to leave. He didn't leave, and now he's playing. Not that I advocate sitting on the bench, but at the same time, this is where Arteta has to say, no, listen, you're not going anywhere. Because, you look over at Spurs. You just said they brought in Kulusevski and some other people. They said, Bergwijn, you're not going anywhere. A couple of other clubs said nobody is going anywhere. Now, we all know January's difficult to do business. We're not asking him to sign a prime Raul or something like that, but we've known we've needed a striker. Going back to January, we've needed to do something. And me and you have been talking about Lacazette. Goals are not important to Lacazette, as people like to remind us. So for me, if goals are not necessarily what we need our striker to do, then the net is even further. You should be able to find, okay, I can understand people saying, and they're right, there's a lack of household strikers for us fans to just sit here and name. But there must be an abundance of guys that have work rate. If it's just a work rate thing, you can find a younger Lacazette. I didn't get it personally.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's a brilliant point, in fact. If you're willing to excuse Lacazette's inclusion in the team based on work rate and not goals, that opens up many different options. Yeah, absolutely. Who would be better, more physical, more aerial presence? In the game against Brighton, he had 6 aerial duels. No, I think it was 6 ground duels. Won 3, lost 3. He had 5 aerial duels, lost 4, won 1. Can't we improve on that?
This is crazy, man. This is crazy. And even though we're getting at Lacazette, this is where, to a degree, I don't know about you, but there's very few players I have expectation on. It's like, it's very hard for me to kind of be angry hearing that with Lacazette, because even when we was informed, this is what Lacazette was: missing chances, not arriving in the box, etc., etc. Even going back to Wolves away. So for Southampton, what are you doing then? Are you going Lacazette up front still if he was fit in theory, or are you dropping him for Eddie? Are you going Martinelli? Some fans occasionally, and they might say maybe Pepe false 9. What would you do if you obviously had the power to do things?
I would only play Eddie if there was any chance of him sort of being here next year. Otherwise, I would be bringing Pepe into the team and putting Martinelli up top.
I hear you on that. I wanted to also ask you as well, left back. Now, I love Tini. Tini's a captain for me, but I cannot lie. And I do think people are harsh with the injuries, because some of them have been literally just a byproduct of playing football. But I cannot lie. If we was to have this show a month ago and you asked me, do I want a left back or right back? I would have said right back. Something just went off in my head with Tini's latest injury. I love the guy. When he's fit, we need him. But I just feel now we need to bring in a left back that is better or levels with Tierney so that there's not a drop off in quality, because as great as he is, he's a risk now, and injuries are part and parcel, especially if we've got a small squad and we're overusing certain players. Tomiyasu's gone, Tierney's gone, as you eloquently put. That kind of kills our build-up play and what we can do, and then we start going through the layers of the midfield, etc. Where are you at with Tierney? Is it time to, I wouldn't say give up, but
I love Kieran Tierney.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Kieran Tierney. None of this, what we were talking about with Xhaka earlier, none of that with Kieran Tierney. He never puts himself in a position where he even needs to do any of this stupid media stuff, because he does the right things on the pitch. Even if he doesn't play well, you might get fed up of a bad performance with him. That's not beyond the realms of possibility, but you can see he's asserting himself in the right way. His body language is on point. Like in the way that you can communicate to the fans, just in terms of how your professionalism, what we can see of you, the effort that you're taking, how switched on you are and stuff. He's always doing that. And you can see that. There doesn't seem to be sort of like him thinking about how he looks or how he's acting first.
How he's portrayed. He'd rather just do the business.
He just seems to be a really honest person. I really get that strong vibe from him and his body language and everything that he does and the way he speaks about the game after, if he ever does an interview and stuff as well. He's very open to just accepting that criticism and not trying to manage it in any way. It's very refreshing. He's my captain. I love him to bits. But the injuries are really bothering me. I would, with a longer term view, just not rush him back this year. I'd say, listen, take the time out, and rest up. Hopefully Scotland don't make the World Cup, because, I just want him to rest up. So I don't mean to be nasty to any Scots watching, but
oh man, you just lost some fans in Scotland, man.
I want Kieran Tierney to be fit and ready to go, for after next season. Take on that captain's armband and be there every single week. That's what I care about.
I mean, I'm like you, but it's just a thing where I just feel, from what I've seen with Tavares and the fact of, I think you've played 21 times for Arsenal, 41 times for Benfica. You're inexperienced. I feel, Arteta didn't bring you in the sense of you as a recruitment one. The recruitment team notified you. So I just feel, you know what, go out on loan. Sometimes I feel with our young squad, it's best for players to stay here. I think Tavares, go out and learn your lessons where it's not actually really harming us. Come back and we'll review the situation. If not, we didn't spend too much. You'll make money. And then I just need someone reliable. We need a backup right back. I know Cedric's done well, but I mean, this is someone that's played 47 times for Arsenal. Are we going to rewrite history based on the last 3-4 games? I'm not going to kill you on the past, but it's like when we do a full circle, what's going to be said? It's just like with Lacazette. I did want to ask you, what's your feelings on Edu to close this up? Like, what is your feelings? Because for me, I give him a bit of credit. In January, you did hear you was trying to do deals and you was kind of crippled with Kroenke, but January's your that's your 7-8 games. This is where you could have done something. You could have got someone in loan, or you could have utilized the phone book if you had it. You just haven't done anything. I don't know what his legacy is. You've torn up a lot of contracts. You brought in Partey where you activated his release clause. You was part of last summer, but that was largely talent ID led, where we all know where Arteta allegedly was saying he wants X, Y, and Z. You tried to say certain things and he got his way. So I'm starting to believe, not that Arteta is going to be a director of football as well, but it's almost like Edu's role to me as an ignorant fan looks a bit obsolete, or it's becoming obsolete, or you're just not what we need here.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. The one thing I would say is that I don't have full faith that Arteta and Edu have got a really harmonious working relationship. I kind of feel like there is some sort of like conflict there. That's just the impression that I'm getting.
That's me as well.
And if you press me on that and say, tell me exactly why you think that, I can't give you concrete examples because I'm not there. But when you pick up on things coming out the club and you read certain things in the media, it seems like there is a bit of friction. So it's only a hunch of mine. Maybe an example of that would be when Edu apparently tried to sign Arta in January, and then it got blocked.
You
look back at that now and you say, well, I quite would have liked him to be there in midfield against Brighton, given that we pushed Xhaka out to the left, So if Edu had that foresight, he may well be vindicated on trying to go for that player, even if it wasn't value for money. I'm less interested in value as I am achievement. So, it's a bit of a sore point there. But I don't know. With Arteta, I remember I was speaking to Fabrizio Romano once, and I said to him, like, for me, as fans, we get the ability to appraise the players and appraise the manager. One of the most difficult ones from a fan's point of view to appraise in terms of their performance is director of footballs.
Facts.
Because there's no stats. You can't go onto any, Opta or Premier League or anything like that.
Largely hearsay, really.
Yeah, and type in his name and get some stats about meetings conducted and successful negotiations. You don't get that level that you do with footballers, where I can say to you, for example, James Maddison's had more shots than Alexander Lacazette.
Oh, so man.
It's a hidden thing. So I asked Romano about that, and he said he rates him very highly, like one of the top 10 people in football in that role.
About with relation to Edu?
Yeah.
That's I don't blame that, but as you said, that's that we're ignorant fans. We can only see what's what, and I just feel there's a lot of propaganda. And for me, I just feel you need to be more of a hustler. It's less so how good you are; it's how good of a hustler you are. I look at them boys down the lane. Their director, Patrizio, or whatever his name is, he's coming from the Italian realm. So you can see they were linked with Tomiyasu. People that if you was watching Italian league, you could see there's an emphasis with, and I know there's work permits and what we're trying to do is different, but I haven't really seen you utilize South America. You brought in William, that didn't work. I haven't really seen you utilize any emerging markets. I haven't seen you really set up any structures. I don't know who's in your phone book, but it clearly can't be any rabbits out the hat. Like even we know with Wenger how he first saw Ozil at 17. Ozil wasn't trying to come to Arsenal, and then what happened many years later, he was able to call him and get wheels into motion. I haven't seen that. Sometimes it comes down to how good your phone book is, and how you can tear up deals, really.
You're 100% right. And if anyone doubts what you're saying, you can even Google this. What they used to say about David Dein, who's probably been in recent decades the best man at that job at Arsenal Football Club. Yes, he made some mistakes in terms of ownership, but aside from in terms of getting recruitment nailed, he was brilliant. And they used to say that he's got the biggest contacts book in English football. Like
it's it's not what you know, as they say in life. It's that.
And then not only that, he held a very, very prominent position at the FA. I think it was like executive chairman or something like that. Some great job title at the FA. Can you imagine how annoyed Arsenal fans would be if currently Tottenham had someone working in the club as director of football and had a prominent position at the FA?
Conflict of interest that would benefit from.
We would be going on and on and on about the conflict of interest there and the advantage that they might be getting there. Right. And that's what we had, and we benefited from it. But we don't have that anymore. So you're 100% right in saying that about Edu. And I'm yet to see those links. You're a Brazilian. You should have a knowledge of the Brazilian market. You've got super agents from Brazil. To what extent are you in bed with them?
We should be an emerging market, like how Shakhtar and them clubs are, that players come here if they get work permits and then we sell them and whatever happens.
Even Kulusevski, it's not a surprise that Bentancur Kulusevski came from the Italian league with that link that I've got there. When you saw what's it called, Arsene Wenger at Arsenal initially, the French, people that came over because of those links.
It's so simple.
If Ten Hag goes to Man United, you'll see some Dutch players at United, or especially some players from the Eredivisie. I wouldn't be surprised if Donjon Malen ends up there because he's in that Dutch league doing well. So these things, it's like, that's what I'm looking for, because we can't see everything as fans when it comes to director of footballs, but things like that are quite obvious that I'm looking for and not seeing them.
So how much do you, because to be fair, on one hand, Arteta and Edu, no one put a gun to your head. You volunteered, signed on a contract and took the job. But as much as I think it's just them, because this is the remit, this is what you lot have had, I actually feel the owners have given you lot, who really haven't got any experience, a lot of free reins at the club. But how much do you put on the owner, to be fair? Because we know what we're at with Kroenke, but we go back to January, maybe a more proactive owner says, you know what, whether you believe in Lacazette or what, I might not care about football, but I do care about money. There's an opportunity at Champions League. Go out there and get me a striker. I'm giving you X, Y, Z. Go out and get me a striker, and then it is what it is. Because we did hear Arteta went to America or something like that. So how much do you put on the Kroenkes or whatever for not trying to intercept that, really?
I do, yeah. For me, if I was the owner of the club and I saw the situation in January, I'd be sitting down having a meeting with Edu and with Mikel, and I'd be saying privately, what is your ambition? We're 3 points clear of our rivals in that race for top 4, end of December. January transfer window's coming up. What are we looking to achieve this season? Original target might have been 6th. What's our revised target? That happens at every single business.
Keyword revised. Revise, because that's what annoys me about fans. They moved the goalpost. Just because we was doing that in August doesn't mean we're going to be doing something else in Jan.
Yeah.
The key word there you said, Mo, is revised. I hope everyone takes heed of that.
Yeah, and that happens in every business. Trust me, look, I work in finance. You'll do a budget at the start of the year. You don't just then say that's it. Compare what's actually happening to that original budget.
Facts.
After 3 months, after 6 months, whatever it might be, you will then do a forecast, and you'll.
Sorry about that, folks. Very, very sorry. Very sorry. Phone call went off. Like, obviously, your boy's trying to make it in this world, man. One love to you, lot, man. I'm sorry. I didn't want to do the whole cutting off this thing and going back. Big up the Twitch gang as well. Shout out to Mo for being here. I just felt, you know what, I should normally end it, but I know earlier today we didn't get to go through Mikel Arteta's press conference, so he's finally on the website, so we might as well go through it still. And yeah, big up the Twitch gang. Please make sure you're watching the ads, because I can't lie, Twitch did the man dirty to this month. Yeah, considering we did 150 hours. We're eating bread and water today, boy. We're eating bread and water for the rest of this month, boy. You lot done me dirty. But yeah, why am I seeing stars and where's my screen? Mikel Arteta press conference. One sec, people. I lied to you. We're not going to do that right now. We are going to do that right now in a sense of we started 10 minutes before, so that would be 1 hour 16. And that's that. So yeah, now we can get this cracking. Where is it? Too many tabs open. Can't lie, the sun is starting to play a massive part. But yeah, I want to see what Mikel Arteta specifically has had to say, people. On Sean, no, I mean, I don't care about him. Listen, big up Sean Dice, but we've spoken about that enough times over these live streams, fam. So let's move on. Thomas Partey's injury. Yes, the news that we got after a lot of assessments is not great. It's not looking very positive for his availability this season, but we'll have to wait and see because he's trying to get back as quickly as possible. But at the moment, we're not very optimistic about it. So I would say that's a smart way of saying Thomas Partey's season is done. You know what? As much as it's a bitter pill to swallow, especially with the games that we have, especially with the fight for fourth, pardon me, stop rushing man back if they're just going to get injured again and again. Him, Tomiyasu, Tierney, whoever's not fit and we have to rush back, let's just hold it up in it. It is what it is. You know, there's no point bringing man back and there's setbacks and all these things. On losing Thomas and Tierney at the same time, it's a killer. But again, and it is rotten luck, but this is the game you play with the lack of depth we have, the lack of quality depth. So the fall off, because as much as Thomas Partey and Kieran Tierney like make our team click, make us stronger, all these sort of things, people. Injuries are part and parcel of a season. Again, it's not the same, but you saw Liverpool, and was it last season, if I remember correctly? They had a terrible season by their own standards because them man always winning and going finals, but they lost their centre backs. They still managed to fall somewhere, you know. Just the other day, Chelsea had a left-back crisis. They managed to hold it up. They're still third. There's been times we've had players out and been able to hold it up. This is a squad game. And we all know when you're like us and we don't have a quality 11, we have a quality 9, in my opinion. We're going to have to rely, you know, it's overusing things. If you've got one good pair of trainers and you wear that every day, but it's going to get mashed up quicker, innit? Or if you got, and then likewise, your brother might have 2 good pairs of trainers. So the workload is spread out. There's going to be more durability there. So it is what it is. Only Arsenal this would happen to, and it's you know, them two are missing people, but you've also got my man Tomiyasu out. It's the game we play, and you know, it's for me what kills me and harms me and shoots me is that Partey, Tierney, Tomiyasu central to our build-up play. That, you know, and even when they're all there, even when they're all fit and they're all there, but put balls into the back of the net. So now they're not there. Now you've got Tomiyasu and, I mean, Cedric and Tavares, for example. Xhaka moves over there. Obviously, if Xhaka goes left back again, which we don't want, we've lost whatever we had in midfield. You know, Cedric and Tavares. Now, obviously, Cedric is more experienced than Tavares, so he'll probably be the one that goes forward less. But that game there has to change. Even when Tierney, and it was Tierney and Cedric, That game there had to change how them lot are playing. So it all like ties into each other, in it, people. But yeah, man, it's silly. But it is what it is. We knew the risk we was taking, really. We knew what we was doing. And I would say, yeah, it's a bit of pill, but it's the lack of quality depth. Like, listen, big up Lokonga and Tavares, but it's almost harsh on them because them man are still learning psychologically. They're gonna go through good or bad moments of form. I like how we've taken them out, especially Lokonga, but now we kind of have to throw them in, really. And then Arteta does have a bit of naivety. Like, you're gonna be damned if you do, damned if you don't. But just to play devil's advocate with you lot, people, you know, Saka going to left back and Pepe coming in on the right hand side, is that a bigger drop off in quality than not having anybody in midfield? Xhaka going to left back and then doing what we did against Brighton in midfield. I don't know. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Big up T for real. Rushing Tomiyasu back for the Liverpool game. Tierney playing for injury, and that's it. Even that, yeah. We found out, now don't get twisted, players play on injuries all the time. Very rarely are players 100% fit, 100% ready to go, and all of these sort of things, people. But at the same time, we've shaked ourselves. Tierney's gone off to man said AFCON. Scotland's therefore not in AFCON. Tierney's gone off to international duty with this knock. It's got worse. Partey, fatigue legged injury led to his thigh busting up. As Arteta said, it's a recurring thing. Tomiyasu, I just feel like what we're seeing in the first paragraph and Tomiyasu in general. I think Arteta is just telling us little white lies. It's like someone owing you peas, and every time you call them, yeah, if a man's getting the £20 and this and that, it just feels like we're getting sold dreams a bit with Tomiyasu. But I guess we're gonna know after this Southampton game with United and Chelsea back, and even then, because it's gonna be like when he first come back, we're bringing man back. You know what games to come back to, and he's not going to be fully fit. Then there's that decision to say, man. So it is what it is. What I would say, as I said with Mo, if you asked me, it's less 2 weeks is probably a lie, but you know, if you asked me just before these man got injured, and you asked me, do I want a left back or a right back, I would have screamed right back. Now with Tierney's injury, I want a left back because, again, the drop-off in quality. Big up Tavares, but we're relying on someone that's played 62 times as a professional footballer. I think my maths might be shit, people, but he's played, I think last time I checked, 41 times for Benfica, 21 times for us. So that's 40-odd games. Bearing in mind, you've also got a further discount because he ain't played 90 minutes too many times for Arsenal Football Club. And I don't know for Benfica. So he's very inexperienced. The drop-off in quality is a bit mad. And then, again, as much as he's young and all these things, and he could be someone tomorrow. It's about what you're doing today. If we need 3 points today, Tavares might help us. He might not, and things like that. So, yes, in that moment, it's not ideal. And we knew that towards the end of the season, one of the key elements was going to have the team available and squad available as much as possible. And we have quite to continue to compete and work in the best possible way. I mean, sorry, people. We knew that towards the end of the season, one of the key elements was going to be having the team available and squad available as much as possible. Did we know that in January? I'm not necessarily talking too much as a striker because I know it's difficult, but maybe you couldn't have. I'm not against Ainsley, as I said on most things. I'm not against Ainsley going because he wanted to go, but other teams would have held on to you for moments like this, you know. God forbid if Cedric was, which I wasn't going to cry if he left in January. If he went, where would we be? Even with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, he's just almost exclusively a fullback in my head, in my head in relation to Arsenal Football Club, but an option in midfield nonetheless. Now, I'm not against him going. It's the knock-on effect. But with Tierney, we know how injury prone he is. Rather him miss the Liverpool and City games rather than Brighton and Palace, which is the difference in getting fourth. I hear that. I hear you. Many people look at UT and say, well, wouldn't you want him there for the bigger games? I hear you. You know, losing battles, trying to win wars and things like that. It's crazy. So we knew this, innit? And we have quite a few issues with him and Tomiyasu as well, but we need to continue to compete and work in the best possible way. On whether there's more pressure to get top four because of our rivalry with Tottenham, I think it's related to our history and we want to be not fourth, but third, second or first. That's what we have to do, but I don't think there's a myth right now. That's always within every supporter and anyone who has any connection with the club. So the moment you see the team doing better and having better aspirations, your tendency is to get excited about it. And I think that's the right reaction. Arteta, I hear you, bro, but you're doing that thing again where, bro, you're not answering the question. You're doing the Disneyland thing. So I ask, you're not right. You're not wrong. Everybody wants that, but that's kind of dead. On whether he would have taken fifth at the start of the season. Now, obviously, we all would have. I think Arteta is kind of, when these sort of questions there, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because now man are going to say, what? He would have taken fifth. That's why he's doing them things there against Brighton. That's why he didn't sign a striker. There's no ambition, this, that, and the other. So he's going to have to, without me reading that, give a diplomatic answer. At the start of the season, you cannot take anything because you don't know how things are going to develop. You can ask me a week into the season or 2 weeks before, and I could maybe give you a different answer, but no. On Southampton's heavy defeat against Chelsea, I think you're going to see two teams that are hurting because we are hurting after we lost the last 2 games and we want to perform and win. I'm sure that after their home defeat they'll want to do the same. Trust. On who is in control of 4th place, whoever. Now, this is where I would like him to be a bit nasty. This is where I'd like him to. You see how Conte in little ways always chatting on us. You know how Ferguson, he was Kevin Keegan and them things. This is where you want us to be a bit smart. This is where now I would have said Spurs. They're in pole position. They're in the driving seat. They've got a favourable run of games. They've brought people in. Not that it's negating from us. You get it, especially as we got to play them in a bit, and they've got Brighton and that. It is where it is. I might have even though we lost to Brighton, I might have even thrown a little diss on Brighton and been like, yeah, Brighton have been in a bad run of form. They had a blip where they beat us. You'd imagine Spurs beat them. This is where I want my manager to be a bit nasty with it. Whoever manages to win more games and play better, to be fair, if you're not going to do what I ask, you can say a lot but say nothing. There's going to be some twists still for sure, and the pressure and situation is going to keep changing between now and the end of the season. We have to be focused on us and what we have to do. Brother, that's good for our big up Rangers, but it's irrelevant. Lacazette, obviously there are private reasons that I cannot comment on, but I have no other team news to give you other than the guys we have discussed. So he doesn't clearly want Hasenhüttl to know if Lacazette is or is not going to be available. On Xhaka's interview, how long is this, by the way? Sorry, people, just wanted to see. On Xhaka's recent interview and how important he has become, I wouldn't like to go into detail about what happened. I think the importance of how things have developed is that for Granit, with his personality and the way he is, to have the capacity and to feel that the environment is right for him now to open up and show vulnerability, show the feelings he's had, speak loudly about it and openly. I think it's a huge decision. And to do that, you have to be emotionally really well. And you have to be prepared and mature to do that. And not a lot of people are able to do that. On his comments about the performance against Palace and what he's done differently this week to avoid another defeat, I said that the performance in the first half was unacceptable. But bro, come on now. You shouldn't have to go down. The way I saw it, it's like somebody who knows they got in, at the start of the year, they know in May that they've got exams and they've just been pissing about, no revision, no nothing. Suddenly, the day of the exam or the night before the exam, where we've all been there. You're trying to read the book and cram and stuff. That's how it was in the second half for me against Brighton. It's like, oh my god, we need to finger, and that's an Arsenal thing, and that's deeper than Arteta. That's been there before Arteta, even with these new players. We need to, if you need to, go into games already or go down if that's going to make you look a bit more thingy, because you've been a bit lackadaisical. At Palace, we just assumed that because we've been on a winning run, we're there. I don't know what it was with Brighton. I don't know. Did you lot think the world was just going to give us 3 points because we dropped some? I don't know, people. I saw a big reaction in the second half, but we didn't put the game into a situation where we could still get something out of it. Against Brighton, it was different. It was not an attitudinal thing. I've never heard that word. It was something else. Again, it wasn't good enough. And we didn't perform at the level that we should do. We are trying to change things, but not too many things, because there are a lot of things that are working. Brother, you changed so many things in the midfield. What are you on about? Pardon me, but there are details that are letting down the team. It's not that we are conceding 15 or 20 shots and getting hammered in games. We are conceding 1 or 2 shots and we are getting penalized. We haven't been efficient enough in a lot of things. Again, football's a game of fine margins. We know this. You know this because you saw it with Pep. You see it with Klopp. People laughed at Liverpool for getting, we've got a set piece coach, but I think they specifically had a throw-in coach or some shit like that at one point. Forgive me if I'm wrong. They got mocked for it. And then I think it was a throw-in coach. What's going on? The game is about fine margins. Half the time we lose. We say, oh, it was just in this 10 minutes or that. That's football. That is football. You could be good. You could be good for 70 minutes. If you had a shaky 10 minutes and a lethargic other 10, then that 20 minutes in the 90-minute game, the other 70 is irrelevant, surely. So Arteta's saying a lot there for me, but nothing. He's then asked specifically about like I said, he said we'll see if he's available. It's a good possibility that's the case. So Lacazette's doing all he can. We know Saka is becoming a target. He's getting kicked left, right, and center. We know he needs he needs protection. On trusting Tavares, no, the trust comes from the way I communicate with them, that I give them the right reasons. When I put a player on the pitch, it's because I can see that they are in the right condition to do that, to show trust, and for the player to show trust to us is that I'm going to give them the opportunity when I believe that he's ready to do that. When I see in the moment that he's doubting, I don't do any favors by putting him in there. Then you can discuss whether Xhaka can play there. Just look at the stats. When the team has played with Xhaka as a left back, they don't get much better than that. I'll tell you, oh my guy, that one there, I don't know for that. I'm baffled with that one, people. I don't know for. I'll be real. I don't know for that one. What is he saying? What stats? Because if you play 2 games there and it's been all right, then of course, what stats? You know, when man start have to go to the stats thing, he's dead, man. On if Nuno has a belief problem. With Nuno, no, not belief. He needs to go through periods like I show you examples of any player that has been in the squad. Not always good periods, difficult periods, but those difficult periods are the best moments to learn and to overcome and to have the ability afterwards to develop in a much better player. And again, it's for Arteta to develop him, but it's for Nuno. That's one thing I agree. Nuno Tavares to take heed of that, because when it was all going well to start half of the season, it was great. But I keep saying it, you know, Lokonga, you've played enough games to know I can't be a deer in the headlights. And Tavares, you've played enough games, in particular away from home, to know I need to think a bit more. As I said, you should have learned from Nottingham Forest. If you learned a bit from Nottingham Forest, you might not have seen what happened to you in games without that. Now, next season, if you're here and not on loan, I'm not saying you're going to be amazing away from home all the time, but I need to see stuff, you know. I need to know that you've learned from Old Trafford, where you weren't terrible, but you let yourself down. Doing a madness at Anfield. Everyone was poor at Nottingham Forest. Selhurst Park, you got savaged. It's crazy. And I'm not against Tavares being on the bench. It's the knock-on effect. You can't put Tavares on the bench and then dash Xhaka. And it's not that I necessarily care that Xhaka is playing left back ahead of Tavares. I don't agree with Xhaka left back, but we ain't got no midfielders. You're moving the one midfielder that's somewhat the conductor of the midfield. You're breaking the links in the chain. So then Lacazette, who's not in good form, when he's dropping deep. So, you know, Odegaard's playing as a right centre mid. Martinelli and Saka are not going to get the ball too many times over behind, so they're dropping deep. We already don't have the technicals in midfield, so our centre-backs are relying on the ball. Ramsdale, every now and again, is going to pump it into the channels. Any half-decent team that's switching on is going to double up against Saka and these, man. As you see, 9 times out of 10 now, Saka's got the ball, he looks up, there's 10 men next to him, and all of them are trying to kick him. And if he skips past one, the next one's coming. As they should, as we should. I wish we was doing that to Zaha. You know, Zaha had a smile on his face. It's crazy. You got to watch back the tape, bro. You're old enough to learn that, okay, cool. This keeps happening. Maybe this is something I'm doing. Arteta, because reality is, in life, it's down to you, you know. You know, Arteta can't develop all of you lot. If he gives an extra hour to Odegaard, that's an hour less for Saka, for this guy, for that guy. Even if he delegates it to other coaching staff, that's taken away from the collective. Old habits die hard. These men are inexperienced. It's difficult, but man are still old enough to learn. You got all the time in the world. You man, what? You're probably training from 9 till 1 or whatever. You got enough time to watch the games back. Anyways, on if Xhaka playing left back disrupts the team. When I'm convinced that I'm going to do something that's best for the team, then it's going to be judged on whether you win or you don't win. The problem, I guarantee, was not playing Xhaka as a fullback. We know it wasn't. It was the knock-on effect of Xhaka playing as fullback and what you did in midfield, on top of the players not turning up. What we doing? What are we talking about? What are you saying there? Like, it's stuff like that. When I see stuff like that, you're talking like you've won the Premier League before. It's a bit snooty in that. Like, if Klopp can say that, Pep can say that, Conte can say them thing there. Like, you can't say them thing there, man. What are you talking about? On maintaining tactical clarity despite injuries. If you have the elements to change one piece for another, it is simple. When you don't, you have to figure out what to do. But this is your squad. You should have multiple pieces to the puzzle without putting players in situations where they're not comfortable and trying to exploit the maximum qualities of the players and ask them to do the things that they are capable of doing. And hopefully you can have every element just to change it and not lose anything. When you don't have that, you have to look for other solutions. Arteta, I love you, but what are you saying, bro? You're saying bare things, but nothing. On if finding solutions are easy, it is complicated, but you have to try and make the best out of that. There are moments that we have played Ben at fullback instead of someone else, and you won. We would have called you a genius if you beat Brighton. Football is fickle. What are you talking about? This is the same way you kind of replied when someone's like, "Do you feel you didn't add in January?" And you was like, "Well, you weren't saying that the few previous weeks." Of course. You know, if I've got a son and it's sunny outside and he ain't got a hoodie on, I'm not going to say anything. If it starts getting cold and it's raining and I'm seeing you run up and down in a t-shirt, I'm going to say, brother, where's your jacket? If you tell me I've lost it, I'm on to you. Come on. What are we saying? Big man. You're my guy, but come on now, man. Player protection is needed. On playing 4-3-3 despite injuries, we have different qualities, and depending on the role and what the game requires or the spaces that you want to attack or defend, it can become more challenging because of the numbers that we have. It's obvious that we don't have the capacity to change too much there. Smith Rowe's ability to play as a false nine, he's not been completely fit to be training and playing every game, but it's a possibility. It's a position that I think he can fulfill in the future, but he needs training and he needs experience in. And he said, taking measures to prevent injuries and it's only going to get worse if you get Champions League and Europa League. There's only more fixtures in the calendar list, so we've really been competing in one tournament, and then we embarrassed ourselves in the FA Cup. We lost to Liverpool, so but a byproduct of that has been we've only been in one game, one thing once a week really, but the games still come thick and fast. So I don't know. I say, as much as I want us to be like City, I think when you look at injuries and keeping everyone fit and rotating the squad, I think the best example for Arsenal is Liverpool, personally. Because it's only in the last few weeks, few seasons now, really just the last 18 months that Liverpool have really, in my opinion, added depth. Konate, Jota, January Diaz, things like that. Before, Liverpool's problem was if Trent gets injured, the next man who comes in is Meady and things like that, respectfully. Nico Williams, Minamino, Origi, who's a cult hero, and I know he's there for the special nights, but that was dead. But they managed to, for the large part, they kept everybody fit. You never really see a mass of injuries at Liverpool. And I say that because Klopp, obviously, when he first came in, they did. But Klopp plays that high demand, high intensity football. So he probably, them and they have to get spot on. So, and I think Arteta might be a bit similar with that in the running metrics. So, is what it is. Every game is important, but obviously when you lose, the next game takes more importance, and we know that. Listen, big up Cedric for getting recalled to the Portugal team. That's great for him. I don't really give a crap about Xavi at Barcelona, and it's got nothing to do with us, man. So yeah, man, that's that. That's that period, people, really. So yeah, that's that. I just thought I would go over. I'd go over that with you lot. That can't be right. It might be. It is. So yeah, man, that was a crazy thing, man. Yeah, we hired a coach. Appreciate you, Big Yards, for watching that as them as well, man. So yeah, it was crazy, man. Like, what are you gonna say, man? What are you gonna say? It's just crazy, man. But we'll have to see what's going on, man. We really will have to see. Let me see. What's this message? Get Sean Dykes in next season. No joke, he'd whip you man into shape. I mean, we just about survived relegation first half of the season, innit? I don't think he's the guy. But on that note, though, people, obviously, what turned into an extended stream with Mo, without Mo, big up to Mo for pulling for coming in and pulling in and helping, man. I'm gonna cut this up. Obviously, Mo, this will be the video of Mo will be on YouTube. But if you're on Twitch, you've already seen it. I should be live at 4:30. If I'm honest with you, to play Football Manager, that might be slightly delayed. Keep a lookout for that. Tomorrow, people, set your reminders on Twitch and YouTube. We're doing a watch along for Southampton versus Arsenal. You lot enjoy what's left of your morning, afternoon, evening, and night, though.
Because you always use that active red line, defending.
I think it's like